Canada, a nation known for its vast natural resources and peaceful diplomacy, now faces an unprecedented threat to its sovereignty. In this hypothetical scenario, the United States has launched aggressive trade sanctions and imposed tariffs on vital Canadian industries. As tensions mount, Canadian leaders consider an extraordinary measure, a targeted export tax strategy designed to disrupt the American economy. In the next few minutes, we will examine the economic mechanics, political calculations, and potential global ramifications of Canada's decision to impose these drastic policies. North America's two largest economies, long regarded as close partners, have become intertwined through decades of bilateral agreements and shared infrastructure. The imposition of harsh tariffs on Canadian goods by the United States has left Canada with few diplomatic tools other than retaliation. As a hypothetical countermeasure, officials in Ottawa propose new export taxes on the very commodities upon which the United States so heavily depends. Canada supplies the United States with critical imports such as heavy crude oil, natural gas, potash, fertilizer, lumber, electricity, and uranium. In a hypothetical effort to gain leverage in a short-term standoff, Canada would impose steep export taxes on these resources, thereby driving up prices in the American market and causing potential disruptions in sectors from energy production to agriculture. These export taxes would aim to exploit the short-run inelasticity of U.S. demand for Canadian resources. Heavy crude from Alberta, for instance, has few short-term substitutes, as many American refineries are specifically equipped for heavier Canadian blends. Potash from Saskatchewan likewise has effectively no immediate replacement, meaning a sudden shortage of fertilizer could raise American food prices substantially. Such pressures would likely generate inflation spikes, job losses, and reduced factory output across the United States over the course of 6 months. At the moderate stage, the government imposes export taxes of around 25% on oil, potash, lumber, uranium, and select minerals. This approach raises input costs in U.S. markets, resulting in moderate inflationary effects and stifled profitability for American businesses still reliant on imports. The taxes serve a dual purpose of sending a clear warning while maintaining a level of trade that generates revenue for the Canadian Treasury. Within weeks, energy and agriculture sectors south of the border would feel the strain. Canadian crude taxed at higher rates would compel American refiners to pay more per barrel, pushing overall consumer price indices upward. Farmers paying more for potash would pass those costs on to consumers, and potential fertilizer shortages could reduce crop yields, triggering higher grocery bills and lower farming profits. If the American government persists in its sanctions, Canadian officials might escalate to maximum disruption. Under this extreme scenario, oil export taxes could reach 100%, effectively doubling the cost of Canadian crude in the U.S. market. Natural gas, potash, and uranium would face similarly high levies, likely resulting in a wave of inflation and mounting unemployment in industries dependent on these resources. Experts debate the global repercussions of this hypothetical standoff, cautioning that although Canada could seek alternate buyers in Europe and Asia, infrastructure constraints make large-scale diversification difficult in the short term. The Canadian economy would also feel the effects of reduced export volumes, yet the government's rationale includes capturing export tax revenue, which could be reinvested in domestic industries to insulate them from the shock and maintain employment. Although we risk our own economic well-being, we must stand firmly in defense of our sovereignty. We remain committed to resolving our differences at the negotiating table. But should this conflict continue, we will not hesitate to deploy every legitimate trade instrument at our disposal. Estimates suggest that, over 6 months, a concerted Canadian export tax policy could add multiple percentage points to American inflation. As the cost of living escalates, consumer confidence would decline. Construction might stall because of surging lumber prices, and the automotive sector, dependent on metals and specialized inputs, could cut production. These effects, although damaging for Canada as well, would undeniably place the United States in a vulnerable economic position. In this hypothetical scenario, the export tax strategy is not undertaken lightly. Historically, Canada and the United States have been each other's closest allies, with integrated supply chains meant to benefit both nations. Yet under extraordinary circumstances, when Canada's sovereignty appears imperiled by unilateral American trade aggression, the export tax emerges as a final instrument of leverage. It could, in theory, force the United States to confront the costly repercussions of dismantling the world's largest bilateral trading partnership. In the end, such a crisis would test the resilience of both nations. While designed to achieve short-term strategic advantage, the long-term consequences of a trade war would be profound for all parties involved. Only time and diplomacy would ultimately reveal whether either side gains from this formidable economic chess match. This has been a look at a hypothetical Canadian export tax strategy and its potential ramifications, the narrator concludes. As nations weigh the costs and benefits of retaliatory trade measures, one truth remains. In an interconnected global economy, an attempt to harm another country's prosperity may well come at a steep price for the aggressor too. Both nations would need to decide whether such a precarious gamble is worth the risk. Thank you for watching, and join us next time as we explore the complexities of international commerce and the delicate balance of power that underpins global economic relations.